Good evening, Greg here. Burn at both ends. Burning on the back end of Wednesday. It is 10:41 Mountain Time. It is July 25th, 2018. Sorry, I had to think about what time it is. I'm on travel. I am burning from Lakewood, Colorado, and we are day 2 of closing session for iCore is in the books. And so, really powerful day. And the thing I'm most proud about is the presentation for today. So, this iCore program, just to remind you, is this technology transfer training that I'm involved in. Say that 5 times fast. Technology transfer training. It's sponsored by DOE, and iCore stands for Innovation Core. So we're learning all about the Lean Startup Model, Business Model Canvas, Customer Discovery Interviews, ecosystems, value chain, so on and so forth. Essentially, all the tools you need to have to build a business model to create a startup. And the way it works is we all have technologies that we bring to the program. And the goal is, and I don't know if I've ever said this on my channel. So the main goal is to take the technology and find one value proposition that applies to one customer, one value proposition that applies to one customer segment, and then pursue that as best as possible. And along the way, during these customer discovery interviews, right, based on what we learn from our interviews from the customers, or these are not just customers, they're also stakeholders, they're saboteurs, they're anyone that's involved potentially in touching this business model in a good or a bad way. And to take the information and then kind of meander down this road to see how we need to pivot, if we need to pivot, to modify and change the customer segment and the value prop. So that way we end up with a viable business model. And the key word here is pivot, right? This is the buzzword. This is when, on the front end of the program, we think, oh, well, we think we can service this market with this value proposition or these customers with this value prop. And then we learn during customer discovery interviews, wow, that value prop is not going to work. For example, what if we thought 20% increase in whatever was going to be good enough, but we need to be 80% increase? Or what if 10% is fine? Or what if it wasn't that, this demographic of customer, but it was that demographic, of customer that really cares? Or what if we thought it was these people, but really if we look over here, it's like 10 times as big? So all these things come out, and the trick is with the customer discovery interviews is we talk to these folks without telling them really what we're up to. And it's not like to be shady or sketchy. It's just that way we don't bias the interview. Because if I say, hey, I got this cool thing in my back pocket I'm working on, what do you think about this? People will just kind of inherently appease and talk about how cool that thing is. And they'll come up with ways as why it's cool, come up with ways as how it might fit in the market. But this is all kind of like false. And so the goal is we keep that in our back pocket, and we say things like, hey, yeah, we're working on a technology that has to do with blah, blah, blah. But we don't really want to tell you much about it because we want your unbiased opinion. So please tell me about your experiences in so-and-so. And, on a lot of customer discovery interviews, I would even start the interview like that. So I was the entrepreneurial lead of the team. The team has an entrepreneurial lead. We have a principal investigator who is essentially the inventor of the technology. And then we have an industry mentor who is someone that is from, not from our company, that is typically a retiree that is seasoned in business and has been there, done that, and can help guide us. And so typically the entrepreneurial lead, myself, would really lead these interviews and try to steer us away from talking about our technology. And so I would say things like, hey, we're part of this program. We're going to keep our technology in our back pocket intentionally. I mean, pretty much like I would tell them what the game is, so that way they'll play the game. And I found that a lot of people are happy to play the game. And then what most likely happened is a lot of times we want this person that we're talking to give us this unbiased opinion, but then at some point we want to tell them what we're kind of up to in some way, so that way we can kind of almost have a second interview with, now they kind of know what we're doing, and now they can give us a different type of opinion. Because you never know what keywords in describing the technology will trigger some really interesting thoughts from that other person, right? Like, let's just say if you're involved in the, I'll just make some up, a technology that has to do with like, I don't know, growing soybeans. I'm just making it up, like in a hydroponic method or something, right? So at first, I'm not going to say anything about soybeans. I'm not going to say anything about our hydroponic methods and see what they say. And then I might give a little bit of information, some high level stuff, and see if that triggers anything. And then, for example, hydroponics. Oh, well, and soybeans. Oh, I know some guy down the road and he loves soybeans and he's been trying hydroponics and, like you never know when that's going to trigger a referral. Hey, talk to this person also. That's going to trigger, oh, wow, soybeans. I've never done hydroponic, but I've done this and blah, 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 and this has been my experience. Like you never know what some of those keywords may trigger. And so we found that, kind of with each interview, we almost do like a two-part interview where the first part is this unbiased part and the second part is with revealing just a little bit about the technology just to see if that triggers anything. And we found that to be very effective. So anyway, a lot of detail there about iCore. Day 2 of the closing session is in the books, as I said. We have one more day tomorrow. And I have to admit, a lot of us, we've been like living and breathing this stuff for the last 8 weeks. And, we've been giving these presentations. I think we're on presentation 11 at this point. So 11 presentations in 8 weeks. And, we're just kind of getting sick and tired of talking about this stuff. It's very interesting, even though, but this is what it's like being a startup. I mean, imagine doing this for 5 years, 5 years, 8 years. Now, a startup shouldn't really last that long because a startup is a temporary organization that should graduate into becoming a real business with revenue and with structure and all these good things. So a startup really, I mean, if you're going past 5 years, either you're not doing something right or it's a very unique type of business and it really has that runway. But, 3 to 4 to 5 years, there should be a pretty clear transition from, okay, we were a startup, but now we're really starting to see some revenue. We're building a customer base. We're no longer a startup. And we're starting to put systems in place in our business and things like that. So, but imagine doing this for several years. Let's just call it 3 years for now. That's very reasonable. I mean, here we are doing it for 8 weeks. And I'm thinking 3 years. And something that I was thinking about, this will be a bit of a random thought, but I want to mention it right now. Right. So I think as a lot of you know, I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. Huge influence in my life. Really got me on this path, on the burn at both ends path. Huge influence in what I'm doing right now. And I think about a lot of his I guess, teachings or content, whatever you call it. I think about it, on a regular basis, and he touches on this point about self-awareness, and this whole point about entrepreneurism is becoming very cool right now, and everyone wants to get involved in it, and we're not all we're not all cut to be an entrepreneur, right? And especially we're not all cut to be a number 1 in a company, or even a number 2, maybe a number 12 or a number 13. Like I know for myself, I am not a CEO. I am not the idea guy or the idea gal or idea person, whatever you'd say. I am more of an execution person. I provide organization, clarity, patience, persistence. These are the things I bring to the table. This is what I really brought to this iCore program. I'm all about processes and systems, and this is where I focus. This is where I excel. I bring this level of clarity, and I bring kind of structure to things, and a lot of times, like in the early startup, the idea person needs to be kind of a little bit nutty and crazy and out there and absent-minded, and it's okay, and they can be wandering off in the corner of the office and just thinking for 3 hours on their own, and that's totally cool. That's not me. So I need to make sure that when I pair up with someone for some kind of business or some kind of endeavor, that they are complementary to me. I need to find the idea person and work with them and support them, right? And then, anyway, back to Gary. So he also has this point about like that it really kind of ruins a lot of people when they find out the hard way that they are not cut to be this type of person. And so what I was thinking about is this iCore program really does a tremendously good job of making it seem like we are in a startup, right? We are given infinite work. You can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and still not finish everything, right? There's always more effort to put in. There's always an additional thing. I mean, this is like a startup. I mean, infinite tasks, finite amount of time to do them in. And typically a very small team with which to do it, very few resources. And so what I'm thinking, and Gary, maybe you'll like this idea, maybe you won't, we can use the iCore program as kind of like a boot camp for young entrepreneurs to see if they kind of graduate through the program and if at the end of the program they still want to be an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur, right? So it's like if you can live and breathe this stuff for, now 8 weeks is not a long time. Maybe it should be a longer program. Maybe it should be like 3 months. Think about someone fresh out of school that wants to start a business. Like, here, go through this 3-month program first and see if you're really cut for it, or see where, and maybe at the end of it, where you fall out is you get a real assessment of this is the type of entrepreneur you should look to be. Like, you should be a number 4. You're really excel in these tasks, and you should not, and you should avoid these things. And maybe even at the end of the program, there can be like networking opportunities where we pair you up with kind of complementary folks that could be a good founding team. Just some ideas, just a way to give someone a taste of being in a startup without that full commitment, right? Because in a startup, this is real. This is people's lives. This is other people's money, most likely, and typically lots of money, right? If you're in a startup and you got 4 or 5 people, you're probably, unless you're a real lean software startup where maybe you're dealing with just a couple $100,000 because it's all just 3 really low-paid people, and just I just spit there, and just writing code, and and you can almost be anywhere. That's a little. Now a lot of startups are like that because there's a lot of software startups, but where we're working from a hardware standpoint. Hardware is different. There's no doubt about it. A lot more challenging, but then again, you have a real hard asset. There are real tangible things. Even software is very difficult to patent these days. It's still, the law is still very fuzzy around how do you deal with software, because once you go in and delete one line of code, I've officially changed it. And it's and it's like like Facebook, like, where is Facebook? Like, it's this hugely valued thing, but yes, it sits on servers, but then you upgrade the servers and you move from that server system to this server system. I'm not sure if I'm speaking about server systems properly, but you know what I mean? This data center to that data center. So, because this one's obsolete, so now Facebook is in a new place, but it's still the same thing. And, if I have a Facebook group of 10,000 people, is that really an asset that I own? Or does Facebook really own it? Or does really no one own it? Because if I go away, that asset kind of goes away because I'm the one that oversees that asset. So you can see how kind of whereas if I'm building cars and I've built 10 cars, the 10 cars are sitting right over here, and you can go over and you can touch them, and you can sell them, and you can drive them, right? And and I have a machine shop to build the parts, and that machine shop has tooling in it that you can go over and touch that tooling. I can sell that tooling on eBay. It's got value to it. It's anyway. So let me get back to, I'm a little off topic. I've kind of strayed a bit. Let me get back to this multi-month kind of entrepreneurial boot camp, right? And so what I was getting at is that it's a real risk to join a startup because it's real people, it's people's lives, it really is do or die. It's when we all want to be nice to each other and we all want to be happy and positive, but at the end of the day, it's like if that startup fails, people lose money, people lose jobs, people have to recover from that, collect the pieces, try something new. Some folks don't handle that very well. Yeah, it can be very devastating. And I know Gary Vee talks a lot about suicide rates, and there's this concept of it's lonely at the top, and this really applies to entrepreneurs. When you're at one of the few people in the company making the decisions, it is a lonely place to be, because I know that I felt it, right? There's no one to go to. It's like, who am I going to go to? I'm the only one to make this decision, and this decision is going to affect 20 people's lives. for the next 3 years? I hope I make the right decision. I mean, it can be challenging. And so when I'm thinking about, just to sum this all up, even though it's been a bit of a scatterbrain thing, and forgive me for that, but maybe someone can edit this in the future and like kind of dumb it down a little bit, but or streamline it a bit, not dumb it down, but so it's a multi-month kind of I-Core like entrepreneurial boot camp where just making it through is a huge milestone. And then when you come out the other end, you really have a good understanding is this world right for me? And if it's right for me, I'll know where I fit in this world of being an aspiring entrepreneur. And then not only that, but then we also have networking opportunities, and and we've been doing it the whole way too. It's not just at the way in, but maybe at the end is where now there's these relationships kind of come to a head, and now there are opportunities. You can imagine this really kind of being a really nice filter for folks that just kind of are under some falsehood about what being an entrepreneur is about. And I'm not saying I know all the answers. I mean, I'm learning myself. I mean, this program has been hugely beneficial to me. I consider myself an aspiring entrepreneur. I look back at my entrepreneurial endeavors, 2 startups. I ran an automation company for a couple of years. But I have to admit, I wasn't all in on it. I didn't get the idea that, no, you work, 68 hours a week on a regular basis because you need to get ahead. Because you know what? Your competitor is doing that as well. Your competitor is working 80-hour weeks. So you just got to get there just to kind of almost break even in the game. And then hopefully the time you're putting in is so well spent that's how you get ahead. So long post, but I don't know. I had that idea today about I-Core and how beneficial it is, because we're at a point in our I-Core where, we're being asked this question. So what are you going to do next? So you've gone through this 8 weeks, you've developed this business model canvas, you have this ecosystem, you have this stack of interviews and data, you have this technology. Is it time to start a business? Yes, no. I mean, and not that this is like pressured on us. This is just like for the fun of going through the exercise of thinking about it, right? But it's a serious question to answer. Are you going to start a business? If you are, what are the next steps? If you're not, why not? I mean, just it's important that to think through this stuff, and it can be emotional because it's like for some people, it's like it means quitting a job. It means quitting that comfortable paycheck and moving into this really unknown kind of scary space. And because a lot of what you hear is the failures, right? I mean, we had a chart today about what percentage of startups get VC funding. Not that VC funding is the only place to go, but it's a data point, and it's something like less than like a 1% to 2% chance of getting VC funding as a startup, or it was something like that. It was something like just ridiculous. And then you have some government funding programs like SBIR, STTR, which can be great, but now you're on that funding schedule where there's a gap between phase 1 and phase 2, and you have to get into the proposal cycle. And if you missed it, you might have to wait 9 months before the next cycle comes up. And if you don't plan properly and you don't win that one, then you got to wait a whole another year for the next one. So there are just all these interesting nuances, and challenges and timing and relationships and timing. I wonder where that comes from. And anyway, so it's a whole different world than this 9 to 5 thing, check in, check out, punch in, punch out. That's really what I would say, punch in, punch out kind of world, and you can see why most people prefer the punch in, punch out world. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. Anyway, so really cool day. And what I was most proud about, and I will wrap in just a minute, I was most proud about the effort I put into our presentation today. Today, the presentation was kind of like the big culmination of all the work that we've done. And this is like almost like the final pitch in a way. Tomorrow we have one more presentation, but that's more about the program and our path through the program. And it's a lot more kind of light and fluffy, I'd say. kind of some of the funny interactions, some of the lessons learned, kind of like that summary type of a presentation. Whereas today was like, I saw today as like, this is the story of our business. This is kind of the pitch that we would give almost to someone that we're seeking funding from. This builds our case. This builds our business model. This tells that story of our tech and how our tech is going to enter the market and what it needs to do that. So, and I was really proud of myself. I thought we had a really great story. I got some great feedback from one of our instructors about how to structure the story in a very simple way. Really appreciated that. So thanks, Steve. You're the man. And yeah, and yeah, I got a lot of good feedback on it, and I mean, it wasn't perfect. I was definitely nervous. I definitely kind of tripped over some words, and wish I would have said some things a little bit slicker, if you will. But a lot of practice, and the practice really paid off. I've really learned how I present well, and it comes with practice, right? I say it over and over, and I write it down. I say it over and over again. So anyway, real proud of myself because the presentation was something that I was really like kind of like lacking on, or not lacking on, but deprioritizing amongst the other iCore tasks. So, but anyway, so this is I will wrap here. This is all about my journey as an aspiring entrepreneur. So thanks for listening. If you enjoy this channel, please subscribe, comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell me, give me some feedback. Ask questions. I love to be of service. So if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know. I'd love to, do my best. In the description, you'll find some motivational links. You'll find some great music down there from SoundCloud. You will find Ents, which is this voice-based social media platform I'm totally digging. You will find a bunch of other goodies. Usually there's a beat in the background. G Money is my alter ego. I write these drum beats. I've been drumming for a few decades, but I don't have the ability with my Chromebook here to add the beats to the background. But check them out on SoundCloud if you dig that kind of thing. I fly back tomorrow, so I will do one more post from Lakewood, Colorado, and then I'll be back in Albany, kicking it in the East Bay. And then we'll see where iCore goes for us. Right now we're trying to get funding to go to Europe to a very important conference. That's our next step. We have some government funding proposals in. We should hear about that in Thanksgiving, but then it doesn't come until February, so that's quite a gap that we're concerned about. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So y'all have a great night. Get some good sleep. Wake up tomorrow, light it up, inspire folks, do great things, and I will see you in the morning.